I don't know who's going to win this division, but I do know that they're all going to kill each other. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packers Podcast where you don't have to be Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom, the AFC North. They just play a different kind of football up there. Grossi, and today we have finally made it to the other conference, the AFC. Yesterday, we put out the NFC West video, and I'm going to just full disclosure here. Right now, it is Sunday, August 18th. A couple hours from now, I will be streaming with one Brandon Perna in the GPS preseason bowl. That's a safety, baby!
Oh, we couldn't even shut him out!
Safety!
Zach Wilson ruined the shutout.
We're so back! Why am I telling you all this? Because I have to record all the AFC episodes today because I'm going to training camp tomorrow for the next week. And so the point that I'm trying to make is if Brandon Ayuk finally gets traded to the Steelers, after I record all this, I don't care anymore. I don't care. Do you hear me, Brandon? This has gone on too long. I'm done. I am done waiting. I am done going, oh, maybe he'll get traded today. I'm done not going out and just sitting there in all my jerseys for 8 hours on the couch, just waiting for something to happen. Waiting for a trade that may never come, by the way, to finally arrive. So yeah, the Steelers, who knows if they'll trade for Brandon Ayuk. Now, if you're brand new to the channel or you missed the other prediction videos, the way that I do this is I go through each team, talk a little bit about what they did during the offseason, and predict their floor, how things could go if everything goes wrong this season, and their ceiling if everything goes right. Sound good? Great. Last year, for 2023, yeah, my predictions to the AFC North did not age very well. I predicted the Bengals would win in first place with a record of 11-6 and a floor of 9-8. They were in last place with a 9-8 record, so at least I got that part right. Joe Burrow got hurt. What do you want from me? 2, I had the Steelers with an 11-6 ceiling and an 8-9 floor. They finished at 10-7. 3, I had the Ravens with a ceiling of 10-7 and a floor of 7-10. They finished first place 13-4, so I was just wrong there. And number 4, the Browns. I had a ceiling of 10-7 and a floor of 6-11. They finished with an 11-6 record as well. So yeah, just wrong. And I know that AFC North fans know this, and it happens every single year because I tried to learn as much as I possibly can about each fan base and really just get a pulse of what's going on to make these reaction videos, etc. But the AFC North is so insanely difficult to predict. Let me give you an example. The Steelers last year were not a great football team. They were not. And they nearly swept their entire division, which had 3 playoff teams, including the number 1 seed Baltimore Ravens. So, does any of this make sense? No. Am I probably going to be wrong again? Probably. So, with that being said, let's get started. Start your engine! Starting off, you got the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens, they had themselves quite a busy offseason. Obviously, a very disappointing end to last season in which they were the number 1 seed, as we just talked about, and then losing in the AFC Championship game to the Kansas City Chiefs. Because they didn't run the effing ball. Sorry, I'm over it now. But their offseason, they lost Gus Edwards, Gus the Bus, J.K. Dobbins, both going over to the other Harbaugh in L.A. They lost Patrick Queen as well. However, they got guys like Derrick Henry and hopefully Keaton Mitchell at some point, even though he's on the PUP list right now, comes back healthy. During the draft, they go and get Nate Wiggins, which I love. They also shore up that right tackle position. And looking at the Ravens, they are a team of what ifs. And I feel like this happens every single year. There's always injuries. There's always, why didn't they run the ball during this time, which is their strength, which would make a lot of sense. And unfortunately, they just keep on coming up short. They're always a really competitive team. Lamar Jackson won MVP last year, and their stats speak for themselves. In points per game scored on offense last year, they ranked 4th in the league. They were the best rushing offense last year. They were the 21st best passing offense because, yeah, there really wasn't a whole lot of wide receiver action going on. And by the way, OBJ is gone, even though I don't think that's really going to make or break the Ravens this year. And over on defense, phenomenal. They were the number one defense in points allowed per game. They were the 14th best rushing defense, and they were the 6th best passing defense. So this team is obviously really, really good. They won their division. They won the entirety of the AFC until they ran into the Chiefs in the championship game. And so it's tough to predict what they're going to do this year because they had it all last year. The Super Bowl was theirs for the taking. And then the Chiefs were like, no. And so looking at their schedule, I imagine their run game is going to be pretty darn solid off the back of Derrick Henry. And like I said, if Mitchell can come back healthy, oh man, that's going to be thunder and lightning. I really want to see Mitchell take the field once again, so I hope he gets healthy soon. And taking a look at their schedule, it is not going to be a walk in the park. Besides their entire division, which they could wind up splitting with, they also got to go against the Chiefs. They got to go against the Cowboys. They got to go against the Texans. They got to play the Bills. They got to play the Eagles. These are not going to be easy games. And I don't think their defense is going to take a major hit, but you do worry about Mike McDonald is now over with Seattle. They did lose some pieces on defense. They lost corners. On top of that, they did lose Patrick Queen. So there's at least some room for concern, though Roquan Smith is still playing on defense, so they're probably going to be fine. And so their floor, I'm still high on the Ravens. I have them at 9-8, and their ceiling, I have them at 12-5, finishing with one more loss than they had last year. I think they're going to be a very balanced team. I think they're going to be a very good team. It's just going to come down to when and if they make the playoffs, can they beat the Kansas City Chiefs? And so like the Cowboys, like we were talking about last week, they can have a great regular season, but when it comes down to it, can they get over the hump? Oh, also, if Zay Flowers ever fumbles a ball again,
I will break my foot off in your John Brown hind parts, and then you will run a mile.
Don't do that. Don't. Following that, you got the Cleveland Browns. The Browns, they are another interesting team. Last season, a ton of injuries. Of course, the biggest one being to Nick Chubb, who still does not have a return date at this moment, and he's another guy I cannot wait to see take the field again because I just love Nick Chubb. But besides Nick Chubb, they also had other injuries, but Joe Flacco came in and said, hey, I will take you to the promised land. And he was winning the Browns games. And then they went against the Texans and got their ass kicked. The Browns are an interesting team because their defense is frickin' phenomenal. And their offense is nothing to shake your finger at either. They got Jerry Jeudy in the offseason. They got Foreman. They still have Amari Cooper unless he wants to get traded still. I don't know. I saw the Instagram story. I don't think he would mind. And on top of that, they shored up the defensive line and the offensive line during the draft. And so the Browns, they are a quarterback away, it seems, if Nick Chubb is healthy, from making a deep playoff run. The question is, can Deshaun Watson be that guy? Even though somehow, some way, Deshaun Watson is still wondering why nobody likes him.
Aside from my own actions, what did I do to deserve this? This is insane.
And with Watson, he just hasn't played up to contract or expectations because he just hasn't been as good as the Browns really needed him to be. And it's disappointing for numerous reasons, but I even mentioned this during Q&A. Like, if Jared Goff was on the Cleveland Browns right now, I don't even think they need an elite quarterback. And I think Jared Goff's a very good quarterback. I think that they could be Super Bowl contenders. And I still think that they could go on a run this year. And with that defense, if it's as good as it was last year, they're going to be just fine. Last year on offense, they were 10th in points per game scored. They were 12th in rushing offense and 19th in passing offense. So pretty darn good. And over on the defensive side, they were 13th in points allowed per game, 11th in rushing defense, and they were the number one passing defense in the league. So a lot of this is going to come down to how is Deshaun Watson going to play and is Nick Chubb going to return sometime soon. Looking at their schedule, similar to the Ravens, not an easy one. Besides having to face their division, which we already spoke about, they have to go to Jacksonville, contend with the Jaguars. They got to go against the Eagles. They got to go and play the Dolphins, the Chiefs. These are not going to be easy football games, but with a very good defense. And if that offense is better than where it was last year, which I'm not 100% sure it's going to be, or maybe it's going to be a slow start if they don't have Chubb at the beginning, I have their floor at 8-9. That's if everything goes wrong. I still think they're going to get at least 8 wins with that defense. And I have their ceiling all the way up at 11-6. Again, there's just too many question marks for me to give them the division because you don't know about Chubb, you don't know about the play of Watson and how that offense is going to look this year. They were able to win plenty of games with Joe Flacco last year, and even when Watson was behind center, they did enough to win football games, even though at times it was just the run game or the defense that did it. So here I have the Browns at 11-6. They'd be finishing second in the division. And yeah, we'll see what happens with Cleveland this year. Following that, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ooh, the Steelers. Big movers in free agency, which never happens ever. Not only did they say goodbye to Mason Rudolph, he's with Tennessee now, but they also got rid of Kenny Pickett, traded him to the Eagles. They got Russell Wilson, and they got Justin Fields. And at the moment, it looks like the starter is going to be Russell Wilson.
Keep on rolling, baby. You know what time it is.
Let's ride.
Let's ride. On top of that, they got Patrick Queen, which is sure up that defense. And during the draft, they added to that offensive line, which was desperately needed. Their offensive line should be pretty damn good this year. And taking a look at their stats last year, oh God, it's the Steelers. They were 28th in points per game scored. They were 13th in rushing offense. They were 25th in passing offense. I imagine that's going to be at least a little bit better this year. And over on the defensive side, they were 6th in points allowed per game. They were 19th in rushing defense and 17th in passing defense. And the Steelers are such an enigma. And I know it's a joke now and it's a meme that Mike Tomlin will never let them have a losing season. But the fact that they're that good within their division, even when they're not playing as well as other teams within that same division, is wild to me. But hey, that's Pittsburgh Steeler football. And so when you look at that back half of the schedule, those last 7 games, which are almost all division rivals, I looked at it when the schedule came out and I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be bad. They're probably going to suck because that's going to be tough. But then watching what they did last year against the division, you're like, I have no idea. And so with that being said, the floor, I have them at 7-10 because somehow, some way, they're going to BS their way to probably a winning record. And that's why I have their ceiling at exactly 9-8. Because Russell Wilson doesn't strike a ton of confidence for me. He's going to be able to get the ball downfield. I don't doubt that. I don't know how he's going to play in this AFC North. I don't know how long until they decide to throw Justin Fields in there, who at times has made some pretty good plays during preseason. But I imagine Wilson is going to be in there until he loses that job. And it seems like this is just a wait around year. They obviously extended Mike Tomlin, who a lot of fans were happy about, but a lot of fans are like, hey, we want to see playoff results because they keep on getting bounced in the wild card round. So it's great that they can keep on winning enough games to have a winning record, but if it's not leading to anything and you're kind of getting a middle of the road draft pick, it's not really helping the future of the team. So I love Mike Tomlin. I think he's probably going to BS their way to another winning record. I am very, very cautious about their QB situation. And even though Jalen Warren got banged up, hopefully he won't be out for too long and he'll be able to have a really productive season. And finally, you got the kitty goes meow Cincinnati Bengals. And Bengals fans, let the trash talk resume because Joe Burrow is healthy.
I have contained my rage for as long as possible, but I shall unleash my fury upon you like the crashing of 1,000 waves!
And of course, the Bengals season last year was very disappointing. Joe Burrow got hurt, Browning came in, and that was fun for a while, and they were still very competitive, but they obviously didn't reach their expectations last year. They did lose Joe Mixon this past offseason, who I don't think is going to be a major loss for them because their run game was not good last year. In fact, they were 16th in points per game scored. They were 31st in rushing offense, which is just abysmal. They were 15th in passing offense. And over on the defensive side, which is where I have a bunch of concerns, they were 21st in points allowed per game. They were 26th in rush defense and 28th in passing defense. Now, they did address some of these problems in the offseason by going and get Geno Stone. On top of that, they brought in Zach Moss as a running back. They got Rankins. They got Gesicki as another tight end. And of course, they drafted Mims this year as well, who's just a towering man who can help protect Joe Burrow. And listen, let me be very clear. When Joe Burrow is behind center, they have a chance to win and go to the playoffs, 1,000,000%. I am just a bit concerned about that defense. The loss of Jesse Bates was definitely felt last season, and Trey Hendrickson is really good, and I think Rankins on that D-line should be pretty good. They also drafted another defensive tackle, and I know they play smash mouth football in the AFC North, but I am curious when they go against teams like the Chiefs, like the Cowboys, hell, even a team like the Eagles who could put up a lot of points. I'm curious how that defense is going to respond to that. So I think Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, they'll be able to outscore a lot of teams in the AFC. And with Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase, I know that they can outscore a lot of their opponents, but it just gives me some pause. I have their floor all the way down at 6-11. That's if everything goes wrong. However, I have their ceiling all the way up at 10-7. The Bengals, to me, are just a prove-it team. I know Joe Burrow is healthy, and that makes me feel a lot better, but they've had some slow starts over the years, and their woes on defense last year, I just hope don't continue into this season, and so that's why their floor is so low, but I would not be surprised at all if they wind up making the playoffs. And so if the standings fall like this, number 1 would be the Ravens, 2 would be the Cleveland Browns, 3 would be the Bengals, and 4 would be the Steelers. I can't wait to come back next year and see how I'm completely wrong about this division because That's the AFC North. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. You know, find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy, all social media, see down below. A big shout and thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.